Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here to bring you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It is currently the eve of November 13, 2023 in the United States, the morning of November 14, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis that are held in the Gaza Strip. Hamas today published a video of a 19-year-old soldier who is being held by the organization. In the video, she states that she has been held captive for 4 days, so clearly this was taken more than a month ago. She calls upon Israel to stop its bombardments of the Gaza Strip, stating that these bombardments are specifically endangering the hostages. In addition, the Al-Akhbar newspaper in Lebanon, which is affiliated with Hezbollah, reported today that a deal is close to being completed between the different warring sides. According to the report, one of the main disagreements remains that Hamas is demanding a 5-day ceasefire in order to complete the transfer of hostages to Israel, and Israel is refusing, offering at most expanded pauses. It was also stated there is disagreement about what Israel will have to give in return to the speculated 100 hostages that will be released, although according to the newspaper did not report where the disagreements there lie. In addition, it was added that Egypt is recognizing that it is impossible to currently talk about a permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, and thus Egypt is pressuring Israel to accept these temporary ceasefires as of now. Abu Ubaida, who is the spokesperson of the Al-Qassam Brigades, Hamas's military wing, stated today that Israel has torpedoed a deal to release 100 hostages in exchange for 200 Palestinian prisoners that are held in Israeli jails, specifically Palestinian minors. He added that Hamas required a 5-day ceasefire, and this is one of the reasons that Israel torpedoed the deal. In addition, it was published today by the IDF. They have found evidence that Israeli hostages, were being held in the Rantisi Children's Hospital in north of the Gaza Strip. So, in the last several days, there's been a lot of speculation about where the hostages are being held. The IDF speculates that a lot of them are actually being held down south. However, as the IDF has moved closer and closer into the heart of Gaza City, they have found evidence that some hostages had been held previously, they're not there anymore, in the Children's Hospital at Rantisi. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, there were continuous rockets and missiles today that were fired from the Gaza Strip towards the south, and after 3 days, also hitting the center of Israel. Rockets targeted the areas surrounding the Gaza Strip, Netiv Asara, Ashkelon, and there was direct hit in the kibbutz of Zikim. In addition, there were barrages towards the center of the country, towards Gush Dan, Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Hulon, and the Shvela area. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, today stated that Hamas has lost control over the north of the Gaza Strip, and Gazan civilians are looting its bases. Regarding some of the IDF activity, there were a couple of high-profile assassinations that the IDF reported in the last 24 hours. Yaqub Ashur, who is the person in charge of the anti-tank missile brigades in Han Yunis, was assassinated. This may be related to what I reported yesterday, that the IDF had carried out substantial bombing in Han Yunis, even though it is the southern part of the Gaza Strip. In addition, Muhammad Khamis Dabash, who is the former head of the military intelligence of Hamas, was assassinated. Tashis Maslam, who is the unit commander of Beit Lahia. Jihad Azam, the intelligence officer of Zaytun area, and Manir Harab, who is also the foreign affairs attaché, I'll call it that, of Hamas in the town of Rafah. All those were assassinated in the last 24 hours. In addition, the IDF reported that it attacked an RPG unit of Hamas that was firing from the Rantisi hospital, and the 21 Hamas operatives were killed in this attack. Regarding casualties, 2 IDF soldiers were killed in the last 24 hours in the Gaza Strip, bringing the total number of soldiers that have been killed since the invasion began to 47. In addition, UNRWA today, the United Nations Relief and Work Agency, the UN organization that specifically works with Palestinians, stated that 102 of its people have been killed since the war began. This makes this the deadliest conflict for the UN. It is the most the workers of the UN has lost in an active conflict zone since it was established. In addition, the Palestinian Health Ministry reported that 11,240 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip. Of these, upwards of 4,630 are children, and close to 27,500 people have been injured. Moving on to some of the humanitarian situation today. Today, the IDF announced a 4-hour pause in the fighting, a humanitarian pause in the town of Rafah. In addition, President Joe Biden of the United States expressed today that he hopes Israel will not carry out fighting in the Shifa hospital itself, and that the hospitals will be protected. I'm quoting, "It's my hope and expectation there will be less intrusive action related to the hospitals." He later put out a clarification, stating that the guilty party for using such facilities and creating the situation is Hamas, stating that Hamas is creating legitimate targets within civilian infrastructures. Relating to other reports about the hospitals in north of the Gaza Strip, there are reports that most of the hospitals have gone out of commission. A White House spokesperson today stated in relation to this, Hamas must stop withholding fuel from the hospital. Spokespersons for Gaza Ministry of Health today stated to Reuters that an IDF tank is parked outside the gates of Shifa Hospital. There's an ongoing blame game going on between the IDF and the administrators of Shifa Hospital if the hospital is actually besieged or if people can evacuate down south. The administrators of the hospital are saying no. The IDF is saying that there is one exit that they can leave from. He reported today there's a tank parked right outside the main gates. In addition, it was reported today that the IDF has begun transferring incubators to Shifa Hospital. It was already reported yesterday that 3 babies in the neonatal ward had died as a result of equipment failure. The IDF is now transferring incubators to Shifa Hospital. There are reports of upwards of 30 more people that died in Shifa Hospital as a result of equipment failure. Other humanitarian issues. The Minister of Communications in the Gaza Strip today told CNN that by Thursday the entire internet communication array in the Gaza Strip will collapse due to a lack of fuel. In addition, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Ashtiya, this is the Prime Minister that's in the West Bank, stated today, and I'm quoting, "We will not create temporary refugee camps for displaced Gazans. Our experience is that the temporary becomes permanent." In this, he's referring to the different refugee camps that were established after the wars of 1948 and 1967 for Palestinians in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip that have become permanent. Regarding aid trucks, 115 aid trucks carrying food, water, and substantial medical supplies entered through the Rafah crossing today. This is an expansion of the amount of trucks that are being allowed in. The United States has said it wants to get to a minimum of 150 trucks per day. Remains to be seen. Moving on to the West Bank today, there was an attempted attack by a Palestinian in the Beit Anon area. A Palestinian tried to stab soldiers and was shot and killed. In addition, one Palestinian was killed in Tulkarem area in confrontations with the Israeli Defense Forces. And in addition, it was reported that a Palestinian died in Hebron after being shot yesterday. This is a taxi driver. He was apparently driving nearby where the IDF was carrying out activity. According to the IDF, the soldiers thought that they heard gunfire and retaliated. He was shot in the head. He died today. Right before I started recording this, Reuters reported that 3 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank in a drone attack. However, again, that came in just a few minutes ago. I cannot confirm if that is true or where that happened. There was also reported activity of the IDF today in the Aqaba Jabr area in Jericho, and gun battles ensued. 5 Palestinians are reported to have been injured. In addition, there was substantial IDF activity in the town of Kalkilia, and 3 Palestinians reported injured, one of them critical. The IDF arrested 36 Palestinians in the West Bank in the last 24 hours. Of these, 14 are reported to be Hamas members. Moving on to the north of Israel, there were continuous rockets and missiles sent from Hezbollah in Lebanon into Israel today. Rockets targeted the Upper Galilee area, the area of Zar'it, Arab al-Ramsha, and Even Menachem. There were also missiles sent towards Sfat, Akko, Kiryat Bialik, and the western Galilee, and it was reported of mortar fires that managed to land in the areas of Granot HaGalil. In addition, there was gunfire that was fired towards several IDF outposts near the Shtula area, as well as towards the town of Netua. The IDF reported that it carried out heavy retaliations against different Hezbollah targets, specifically targeting several of its headquarters. In addition, it stated that it attacked 6 different units that were firing rockets and anti-tank missiles and mortar fires throughout the day. One Israeli civilian that was injured yesterday from an anti-tank missile that was fired towards electric company workers died from his injuries today. Moving on to some of the regional developments. Elizabeth Zurkov, who is a Russian-Israeli who was kidnapped in Baghdad in March of 2023, was shown in a movie that was released today from captivity. So Zurkov was kidnapped while conducting research for her PhD in Princeton. There was no life signs from her until now. It is believed that she has been kidnapped by the Hezbollah Brigade's militia in Iraq. This is a militia that's loyal to Iran, but it's different than Hezbollah in Lebanon. And in the video, she specifically references the ongoing war in Gaza, which indicates that that video was taken within the last 5 weeks. In addition, there were reports in El Miadin today, which is a newspaper in Lebanon's affiliated with Hezbollah, that the American El Amr base, which is east of Azur in Syria, was attacked with artillery in response to the U.S. bombings that it carried out against the Iranian Revolutionary Guards compounds in Syria yesterday. In addition, reported there were drone attacks against at least 3 other U.S. bases in the region. Hezbollah brigades in Iraq claimed responsibility for one of these. The Pentagon did not relate to any of these reports, so it can't confirm if they are true or not, but this was reported in El Miadin today. This is continuing escalation in the regional back and forth between the different Iraqi militias and Syrian militias and Houthi militias with U.S. forces. Moving on to some of the political developments and general trends that occurred, there is growing disagreement reported within the administration in the United States regarding President Biden's support for Israel. Today specifically, an email was leaked sent from Secretary of State Blinken to his staff that relates to the fact that a lot of people are unhappy with the way Biden is expressing unconditional support for Israel and not trying to restrain Israel more to accept a long-term ceasefire. This relates to a lot of mounting pressure that is coming up within the United States and the Democratic Party specifically to pressure President Biden to restrain Israel more than he is. Possibly relating to this, Israeli Foreign Minister today, Eli Cohen, stated that he believes that Israel has 2 to 3 weeks before substantial international pressure will mount to complete the invasion and end Israel's operation. He specifically stated, and I'm quoting, "We see the pressure increasing. It's not very high now, but it is going to get stronger and stronger. There are those who request not to say it publicly, but are already calling for ceasefires." So again, while most of the quote-unquote Western powers are supporting Israel in its war in the Gaza Strip, according to the Israel's foreign minister, there are those who are already not saying it publicly, but privately are saying you need to work towards a ceasefire. There was a cyber attack reported today against a substantial amount of Israeli websites trying to flood them with Hamas propaganda. This reportedly was blocked. In addition, the EU today condemned Hamas for using civilians as human shields and for using hospitals, and called upon Israel to exercise maximum restraint as it moves closer and closer to the Shifa hospital. Moving on to some of the speculations regarding the future of the Gaza Strip, the Minister of the Negev, Galilee, and National Resilience in Israel, Yitzhak Wasserloff, who is from the most hawkish extreme Jewish Power Party, was asked today about the future of the Gaza Strip, and he stated, and I quote, "Even if I know, I will not say it now. I have a worldview that relates to holding on to territory." He was then pressured to clarify what he means in the interview. He continuously refused, adding, quote, If I say what I mean, it can create substantial diplomatic problems. I'd rather not say anything now." So that relates to at least what some of the parties in Israel's government are planning for the future of the Gaza Strip. In addition, relating to the future of the Gaza Strip, the foreign minister of the EU today, Joseph Borrell, stated that after the war, a strengthened Palestinian Authority should manage the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and importantly, it should get its authority from the United Nations. Quoting, "Its legitimacy will be defined and decided upon by the Security Council," which would be a substantial rearrangement of the political forces in the area. The Palestinian Authority gets its authority right now from Israel. It is actually officially an authority of Israel as part of the agreements. He is saying that there has to be a redefining of the Palestinian Authority, that it will be its own entity assigned by the UN, by the Security Council. Borrell also rejected the notion of forced Palestinian immigration out of Gaza. He also rejected the notion of Israel reoccupying Gaza or of territorial changes, and also rejected the notion that Hamas can stay in power, stating that as far as the EU is concerned, a strengthened Palestinian Authority is who has to stay in power. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I will add that tomorrow I may not have a report, since I am actually giving a talk at the University of California, Irvine, summarizing the last 5 weeks of the war, so I may upload that instead of a summary. Either way, I will see you tomorrow.